Golubski's name first surfaced about 4 years ago when an innocent man was released from prison. Golubski is now an accused rapist, and our continued reporting reveals families question if he's connected to the murders of poor black women. Tonight, you'll hear from a prisoner who questions what will it take to look into Golubski's old cases. Robert Diaz was shot and killed inside his car at 40th and Minnie. His autopsy revealed 7 gunshots. It was dark. No one called police for at least 10 minutes. Doors left open, headlights on, glass on the ground, then eventually sirens. Amon Mann tells his version of what happened next from Lansing Prison. What was it like when they picked you up and arrested you?
I didn't know what it was for. You know, when I came in, I asked him, was it, what was this for? Like drugs? And he said, murder. I'm like, murder?
Amon Mann says he was a drug dealer back then, the guy with the money, not a killer, and claims there was no motive connecting him to the victim.
I never knew him. I never knew him. What's up, stuff like that. But besides that, I never had a conversation with this dude. I didn't know who he was. No, none of that.
Did they offer you a deal at any point before you went to trial?
My grandmother said if you didn't do it, don't make any deals, don't do anything. So I told him off the flip, I want to go to trial. There was no evidence against me at all, period, just besides this witness. So I was really pretty confident that, I would have been going home.
There was no physical evidence connecting Amon Mann to the case, no fingerprints on the car, and his clothing was tested, but investigators didn't find any blood. But there was one eyewitness who pointed to Mann, a teenager named Lauren Artis, a rival from the streets. The jury believed him, and Amon Mann was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Our story takes its first turn with his handwritten letter sent to Mann in prison. It comes from that eyewitness and rival. It's notarized, meaning an official verified the identity of the person writing the statement. It's dated May 1st, 2011. I claimed to be a witness to a murder on the Amon Mann case when I wasn't. I testified in open court because I was forced by detectives to. I want to retract my statement because I feel guilty about what I have done, and I feel like I was wrong. What did you think when you got that letter and you saw him saying that?
I was just happy that he was just telling the truth, and I thought I would just go home. I don't know much about the law.
Amon says the pieces in his head clicked. He knew the detectives, Roger Golubski and Terry Ziegler. If you look closely at KCTV5 file video, both detectives are at the scene. Golubski is in the tan sports coat, Ziegler in black. Their names are on the witness statement of Lauren Artis, where he's asked about the car. Question: what color do you remember it being? Answer: it was either green or red. A few pages later, he's questioned about what he did next. Answer: and by then, after they ran, after I seen them ran, I started running myself. But the story changes depending on the detective's questions. Maybe Lauren Artis doesn't run. Maybe he investigates the dead body. Question: okay, did you go up to the car to look in the car before you took off? Answer: yes, sir. The notarized letter recanting Lauren Artis's key testimony never prompted a court hearing, which is why we recently interviewed Amon Mann by phone from Lansing Prison. Years roll by.
I have nightmares about this stuff.
And then Lamont McIntyre accuses this same detective, Roger Golubski, of fixing a case and pressuring witnesses out of revenge.
Yes, I was praying and hoping that it did, because it wasn't like it was a little different. It was like the same exact thing. A witness being told what to say, and yeah, I was really hoping that it would affect me.
It didn't. If you were wondering what could make a powerful detective hate Amon Mann, Mann says he knows. He was dealing drugs near Golubski's daughter's house.
Well, because we were selling drugs out of the house, and his grandkids was there or whatever. all I can really think of.
I just don't want to hear it no more.
Ahmaud Mann has watched as people have stepped forward with terrible accusations.
Nobody cared, so that didn't matter.
Including sexual assault, questioning if Golubski played a role in the deaths or cover-ups of their loved ones.
She was strangled and she was left in the alley off of 10th and Walker. She was murdered.
Eric Calvin questions Golubski's role in his sister's death and investigation. Rose Calvin's case has been on our radar for years.
John Calvin.
Her brother is in prison, claims he's innocent, and the real killer agrees. We know because we interviewed him.
He ain't do nothing. I did it.
The FBI is digging into the cold case of Rhonda Tribune. She was beaten and ran over by a car. The family says Golubski is a target.
He is the common denominator from all those cases.
It's time that you do your job the way we see fit.
Rallies call for Golubski to be held accountable, demanding a Department of Justice investigation. And Ahmaud Mann just sits in prison, shaking his head.
I'm still here. I almost did all this time for nothing. No evidence on me whatsoever, period.
So
why is it so easy to convict you and so hard to get out? I don't understand that.
He tells us his case was recently in the hands of Wyandotte County's Community Integrity Unit, which reviews old cases. Every member of that unit was recently fired following secretly recorded conversations.
No, I mean, you know, because that would solve so many of our problems.
It revealed troubling beliefs by the people who were supposed to bring accountability and justice to people like Ahmaud Mann. What do you think of the justice system now?
I think it sucks. I really hate it. I really hate it.
It's unclear if Golubski has ever been interrogated by authorities, but he has been questioned in a civil deposition connected to the Lamont McIntyre case, where he pled the Fifth Amendment more than 500 times. And that's the amendment that protects you from incriminating yourself. Angie Raccono, KCTV5 News.
It's overwhelming, and I don't know where you get to this point with the law.
Eric Calvin is left to tell the story of what happened to his sister. She took her killer's name to the grave. What had happened to your sister?
She was strangled, and she was left in the alley off of 10th and Walker. She was murdered.
Rose has been dead for almost 25 years. Time has rolled on. The alley where she was found is now gone. But the family remembers the pain and say her case lacked proper police work. Why wasn't your sister's crime investigated?
We were told that her body was badly decomposed, and that you could not recognize her, and all the evidence from the crime, from the scene, had been washed away.
Washed away with what?
With rain. And we come later to find out that that was just a fib. It was not true.
Finding truth in a cold case is tough. There are theories and suspicions.
It had to be somebody to where they want to cover it up.
Here are some heartbreaking facts. Rose and her family were poor. There's still no headstone for her grave. She struggled with drug addiction, and she was connected to the detective who would later help investigate her case.
She knew him. She was seen with him. I have seen her with him, and he would come by my mother's house sometime and pick her up, and she would be in the car with him.
Why?
That at the time I didn't know, but right now I know that he was messing with them, the type of women that he used to mess with. He used to prey on them type of people that was on drugs and on the street.
Other women have accused Golubski of similar behaviors.
Golubski was so powerful that I didn't think some of us would have felt comfortable saying no or turning down his request for sexual favors. When Golubski or any other officers came to the bottoms, we knew we had a choice of providing sexual services or getting arrested. If you did not provide what he wanted, oral sex, Then he took you to jail. That was simply understood.
More and more people saying the same thing, it starts being more credible.
We first began covering allegations swirling around Golubski about 4 years ago. They surfaced when an innocent man was released from prison.
I gotta stop shaking for a minute.
His mother accused Golubski of sexual abuse, too.
Is this man gonna do something to me? He's got power. I don't got anything.
Golubski refuses to speak with us. It's unclear if he's ever been questioned by authorities. They admit many allegations have now grown too old. If you are wondering why we are telling you about Rose Calvin's case now, that's because we've been connecting the dots in another cold case. This is where Rhonda Tribune was found in 1998, 2 years after Rose was murdered. The FBI wants information. They are offering a reward. She was beaten and left for dead here. Her family has revealed why they believe the feds are involved.
He is the common denominator from all those cases.
The he Rhonda's daughter is talking about is Roger Golubski.
They're women, cold cases, brutally murdered, found in the same areas. So he is a target at this point.
KCK police themselves placed Rose Calvin's murder on the same flyer as 3 other cases. Women stabbed or strangled within a matter of months. Print reporters wrote detectives were careful to not call it a suspected serial killer.
I'm free, man.
The attorney who represented Lamont McIntyre sent us this statement. During the course of our investigation of the Lamont McIntyre case, we learned of the widely known murders of 15 or more women that remain unsolved. These murders came to our attention because Roger Golubski was a homicide detective at the time, and because some of these homicides received little or no attention from detectives.
I think he did it himself. I mean, that have crossed our family mind back years ago, but now I absolutely believe, not certain and not 100% for sure and can say that, but I believe that he committed the murder himself, or he know who did commit her murder.
Rose Calvin's case has been on our radar for years. We first reported on her brother in June of 2016. John Calvin also struggled with drugs. He says he was duped by drug dealers into knocking on a door to sell CDs. When shots rang out, he ran home and called police.
I should be doing the time, not him.
Even the killer agrees the wrong man is in jail. He apologized to us on camera. He didn't know anything about it.
He don't know about no robbery or none of that. He don't know about I was gonna kill him. He don't know about nothing.
The family blamed police corruption, specifically the detective, Roger Golubski. KCTV5 has covered rallies for John Calvin.
You can't see who he is.
Lamont McIntyre joins his family.
There's a lot of people don't know about John Calvin. A lot of people don't know or realize or understand that the same exact thing that happened to me happened to somebody else.
McIntyre and others see a pattern. Innocent black men going to jail, women sexually abused, and Golubski connected to the cases. All of that complicated history, which spans decades, brings us back to this Wendy's cemetery and Eric Calvin. One sister dead, a brother in prison.
We want to see him brought to justice just like anybody else. Just as much as he worked hard to putting innocent people away, we want the FBI to work just as hard to put him away for something that he did.
Questioning what accountability really means and if anyone really wants it.
No, I think it's a nightmare, and I think they know if they dig up all the things that he did wrong, that you will find that he was not the only corrupt detective or corrupt law enforcement. They don't want to dig up everything, that they don't want it to be uncovered.
Our investigation into these murdered women continues, and we'll keep reporting on allegations connected to Roger Golubski. He was recently under oath and asked about his behavior as a detective. He invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 550 times. That's the amendment that protects you from incriminating yourself. Reporting in KCK, Angie Racono, KCTV5 News. This lonely stretch of road is where Rhonda Tribune's body was found. It's on the edge of Edwardsville in KCK. She'd been beaten to death and run over by a car. So many injuries are documented in her autopsy. Who did this? No one has ever been held accountable, and her family wants answers.
What do you know about your mother's murder? What have you been told?
I know that it was a brutal murder and that she was like discarded off the side of the road, that she did have DNA under her nails, so she did fight back. Whoever it was, she did fight back. She didn't just die, she fought for her life.
Jaleisha was just 4 years old when it happened.
A lot of heartbreak. Mother Day comes every single year. People come pick up their kids from school. So you're reminded every single day what you're missing out on.
Years rolled by, then decades. Rhonda Tribune became another cold case.
I'm going to be honest with you. I lost hope. I lost hope before.
Now the FBI wants information, but there needs to be a compelling federal reason for them to investigate a local murder.
What is your understanding of why the FBI wants to look at your mother's case?
There are several cases that are particular to the same instance of my mother's case, and that he is the common denominator from all those cases.
The he Jaleisha is talking about is actually the detective who worked her mother's case, Roger Golubski.
There are women, cold cases, brutally murdered, found in the same areas. So he is a target at this point.
There are terrible allegations swirling around Golubski. He's now retired. He was a powerful detective who became a captain.
I don't know what happened then.
His partner became the police chief. Did you hear of any of these allegations?
There was nothing that I ever learned about him that I was like, ooh, that's not good.
Golubski worked for 35 years inside the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department.
Detective Roger Golubski. Everything heads to court tomorrow. It's unclear how many cases he touched.
KCTV5 has done more than a dozen reports on him. He's accused of being a predator who roamed the streets and victimized the people he was sworn to protect. He's accused in court records of intentionally botching a double murder and sending an innocent man to prison for 23 years.
It's time that you do your job the way we see fit.
The Lamont McIntyre case prompted cries for justice and accountability. Golubski has never faced criminal charges. As investigators argued, many accusations are outside the statute of limitations. Golubski refuses to speak publicly about the allegations. We've tried.
Do you believe there are people in KCK out there that have information in your mom's murder?
Absolutely. KCK is a small town. If Kansas City wants to speak up, Kansas City will. Kansas City is small enough for someone to know exactly what happened. We're talking about a woman who was married and who had 6 children. You just don't disappear. You just don't disappear like that.
Former Detective Roger Golubski is the target of a federal grand jury. That's according to CNN. KCTV5 hasn't independently confirmed this because grand juries are supposed to be a secret. Our investigative team is following this developing story. Angie Riccono joins us from the newsroom.
Carolina, families are certainly glad to hear this news, but they expected it a long time ago. I just sat down with Nico Quinn, who says accountability is long overdue.
Our community has been hurt. Our community has been torn apart from people that we're supposed to have trusted. And I don't think it's all about just Golubski. I think that everybody that played a part that was higher than him, I believe that he was just doing what he was told to do. I think it's bigger than him. And everybody that has something to do with it needs to be brought down. Justice needs to be served.
Allegations against Golubski first surfaced more than 4 years ago when Lamont McIntyre was freed from prison after 23 years. His case exposed terrible allegations of abuse and corruption. Most of it was aimed directly at retired Detective Roger Golubski. Golubski worked for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department for 33 years and eventually became a captain. His partner became the police chief.
In the years that followed, KCTV5 has continued to report on accusations from families who question Golubski's power and what really happened in their cases. We've interviewed people who claim to be innocent, and they are either backed up by the gunmen or eyewitnesses who now claim they were told to lie. Here's the executive director of the Midwest Innocence Project.
I think we're disappointed in the timetable. The folks who have been calling for this have been calling for this for decades, right? Certainly the lawyers who come along, we are not the first people to say this. We are only amplifying the voices of those who've been impacted, who shouldn't even need us to amplify them in the first place. And so that's sort of, looking at it, it shouldn't take this long. It shouldn't take the fact that there needs to be lawyers coming in. It should have happened decades ago, and it could have prevented harm that we know has occurred anyway.
The KCK Police Department says they are cooperating with the FBI and actually have been for years. We will keep you posted on what happens next. As the families say, investigations are one thing, charges are something else. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.
What does it mean when a billionaire backs your cause? KCK is about to find out.
How far are you guys willing to take this investigation?
So we're willing to take this all the way, but we really want to see change. And we're not going to let up until we see change, including prosecutions, but also changes to the training, to the hiring, to just the policies of the police department.
Meet Christina Sarchio, a former prosecutor who now works for Rock Nation.
How can this be going on under everybody's noses and nobody is doing anything about it? And it is just screaming for help.
She's referring in part to retired detective Roger Golubski. He faces terrible allegations of sexual abuse and framing innocent men.
And I have nightmares about this stuff like 3 to 4 times a week.
Other families openly question if Golubski is connected to a string of unsolved murders.
He is the common denominator. There are women, cold cases, brutally murdered, found in the same areas. So he is a target at this point.
KCTV5 and other news outlets have reported on allegations from numerous families time and again.
Folks can watch the news here all day long, right? We've got coverage on this channel, we've got coverage in the newspaper. Folks have heard about these issues, but the rest of the country hasn't. And that matters because we've all been hearing about it, but nothing has changed. And so now maybe when everyone gets to hear what's going on, with someone with the resources of bringing in and says this matters, maybe that will mean there's change.
The executive director of the Midwest Innocence Project says the allegations deserve national attention.
It really is hard to get folks, I think, to understand the scale of how much corruption and abuse has happened in Kansas City, Kansas. I have never seen anything like this. I am president of the Innocence Network that works with all of the different innocence organizations around the country. And our colleagues are shocked when they hear how widespread and how open this is. This isn't a secret. Folks know that this is happening and has happened. And I think what everybody wants to know is where is the accountability?
The fight right now is over documents. Team Rock's attorney promises this is the first volley. More to come. We'll keep you posted. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.